Old Matt, 22 years we've known each other. Mate, how exciting. No, look, I am so well, and it's such an honour to be here and to be just part of the listening audience around Australia. Having grown up in Western Queensland, I was born in far north Queensland, so I really have a real sense for people in remote and regional areas as well, cool. As well as the city where we found ourselves now. Yeah. But look, it's so great to be part of this show, and really looking forward to spending this time this morning.
Very cool, mate. So Skip's going to be sharing communion with us a bit later, so get ready for that. He's going to be sharing his favourite worship song with us, and he's actually sung on some Christian Outreach Centre songs over the years, and we might see if we can squeeze some of them in the show, so looking forward to that. So, mate, let's hear a bit of your story. Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I was born in Mareeba in far north Queensland, a little town up there, and then my family went a bit mobile. My mum was getting really bad skin cancer, so the doctor said, you need to leave the tropical sun. So we sort of got a caravan and came down, and then we lived in a whole bunch of little towns like Kin on the Sunshine Coast, a little tiny town on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, and then in Palmwoods, and then we moved out to a place called Bollin out in West Queensland between St George and Cunnamulla. So a little town of about a 3-teacher school, 50 kids. So I've sort of grown up in that space, and then there were no high schools there. The closest high school was 117 kilometres away. So everyone in my town went to boarding school. So I went to boarding school in Warwick at Scots College, and then I came to Brisbane to come to university. And it was at university that I came to faith, and it was at university that I found God, and I found the calling. I finished my degree, my commerce degree, and then I went to Bible college, and then I've worked in the church world ever since.
Very cool, mate. Now, I've heard you share a bit of your conversion story, and I just want to unpack that a bit. So you didn't really have any religious flavours, like I guess you're at Scots College, so you knew a bit about God, obviously.
Yeah, well, actually, I'd grown up. My mum was an organist at church, so I actually had grown up in denominations where we'd been around the gospel. Yeah. I remember the small town of Kin. I just was talking to someone the other day who was a teacher there, and she was a Christian, and there was a revival going on in the town. And I remember we had this wonderful Baptist minister, retired Baptist minister, Mr. Brain. Yeah. He would come along and do RI in the school. Right. And one of the things he would do is he was encouraging us to give our lives to Jesus. And I remember going home to mum one day and going, I'd like to give my life to Jesus. And she said, no, you can't. She said, you have to wait till you're older and you understand it.
Okay.
And so I was like, I can't give my life to Jesus. And so I still remember that conversation as a child. But yeah, it was when I was then at university, and I was just making friends, and this girl, I got chatting to her one day, and she asked me, she said, are you a Christian? And I thought, well, I'm not really a Buddhist, I'm not a Hindu, and I'm not, and I've grown up around church, even though I don't have I thought, yeah, I'm a Christian. She goes, great, you'll come to church with me then. And I was like, I just got tricked into that. Okay. So I went to church, and it was a uniting church here in Brisbane. Yeah. And in that moment, the minister preached the gospel, and the gospel pierced my heart. Wow. And I heard about the love of God, and it was one of those real on the floor, lots of snot and tears moments as the Holy Spirit really got inside my heart. Yeah. And it was an amazing life transformation in that little church at Sunnybank Uniting back in 1989.
Wow, so good. And tell us how your life changed after that.
Oh, look, absolutely. I suddenly realised I had a purpose. I was loved, and I didn't have a really good relationship with my dad, but suddenly I had a heavenly dad that loved me. And so I just thought I'd just give every part of my life to God. I thought, this is it, we're in. And just went on this amazing journey. It took me, I ended up at a different church because through a whole bunch of circumstances where that's where I went to Bible college, was Christian Outreach Centre. Yeah. And that's where I met my wife there, got married there. And then, like I said, after Bible college, started working in the church. And that was the first part there. Because I had a commerce degree, they needed someone in the finance department. Yeah. So I started in finance. Wow. While I was serving in our young adults ministry and stuff. And the rest is history, just sort of went on from strength to strength to strength.
So was that when Clark Taylor was the pastor?
No, this was just after he'd finished. So it was just in a season there when there was a big transition happening in the life of the church. Apparently, the church was in all sorts of turmoil. I didn't know because I was a new Christian, and so everything was wonderful. Everything was good. I just found Jesus, and I'm having these beautiful times with God. And apparently, all these things are happening around me, which I found later once I was there. Right. But it's amazing how God can do that, Matt. That's when we think it's all this and that, and we've got ideas of what God's up to or not up to. he's still working and
Yeah.
moving at people's hearts like mine
Yeah.
in the midst of all those things that are going on.
Yeah. I watched Clark Taylor's funeral recently.
Yes.
And I think you were a part
Yeah,
of
we were there. Yeah, my wife did part of a eulogy on behalf of Pastor Ann. Yeah.
So beautiful. And, you know, the thing I was really inspired by, I mean, not only did he, you know, plant Christian Outreach Centre and plant churches all around the world and
Yes.
preach all around the world, but every family member that got up, every speaker that got up, all said they felt like they were special to Clark. They felt like they were the only person in the world to him.
Yes.
Because he was a loving, caring person to every single person. I thought that's a great testimony, isn't it?
Totally. I remember the very first time I met him was in the car park outside of a Christian Outreach Centre. This is after things had all started happening, and
Yep.
his world was in an amount of turmoil. And I remember happened to bump into him,
Yeah.
and I introduced myself. I said, "Hi, I'm Skip," and he goes, and he just the warmth. Hi, Skip. He saw me in that moment. I felt like I was the only person there.
Yeah.
And this was in the car park at the end, and
Yeah.
his world was so big and so much going on
Yeah.
at the time. But exactly that, Matt. The
Yeah,
very
wow.
first time I met him, that's exactly my first memory of him. I felt seen, known, and loved in that moment,
Yeah.
even as we were just passing.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, his story had lots of ups and downs, and if people know the story, went through all sorts of things. But, you know, he finished well.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about Worship Centre, which was another church you were part of,
Yes.
pastoring after Clark Taylor all those years later. We'll talk about that throughout the morning. But we're going to play a song now called Heart of Worship with Andrew Ironside and Christian Outreach Centre. And you are featured in this song.
Yeah, I've actually got a couple of lines in it as well. You won't hear me in the backing vocals, but
Okay.
here we go.
Okay, here we go. Very cool. So good. So I saw a video of Andrew Ironside recently with John James from the
Oh, okay.
Newsboys.
Oh, really?
Apparently John is releasing, and hang on, we should stop.